Hi guys, how's everyone doing today? On our last video on this 1956 DeSoto, I made kind of a fast turn through the engine compartment, and I did promise you that we would come back to this and spend more time under the hood here. So let's do that now, shall we? So there's a lot of things to see under the hood of this car that are different from a more modern car. It's to some people it'd be really intriguing how much differently they approached how they did things back in the 1950s compared to later on. So without further ado, let's go looking around under the hood of this car and see what's here to be seen. So the first thing I noticed about the hood, working under the hood of this car, is there's not a whole lot of headroom because this is as far up as this hood goes. It's not really very big of an opening here, and the car sits pretty low, so you're kind of crunched under here to work on the engine. So let's get some light on it here. One thing I've noticed about working in a shop, it doesn't matter how much light you have up above you, you still have a bunch of shadows. But that's okay. I'm used to the shadows. I exist in the shadows a lot of the time. Okay, so to begin with, as we said on the first video, this is a 330 cubic inch DeSoto Hemi. So it's not the same as a Chrysler Hemi. It's not the same as a Dodge Hemi for their own reasons. Probably because they had a lot of money, or not a lot of money, a lot of something. They decided they needed three different engines instead of just sharing the same engine and putting their name on it. So this one's a DeSoto. It says on it DeSoto. That's the valve. That on the valve cover, that's the spark plug wires run in there. So they come in the back and they're hidden under that. So this is an early Hemi. People hear Hemi these days, they think of two different things. They think of like a Roadrunner, or they think of a modern car with a Hemi, like a Challenger, which those are descendants of this engine, but they're not the same engine, not even related, just except that they have a Hemi spherical chamber in the head. So that out of the way, this car, you know, when I initially was looking over this car, I thought it was fairly bare bones, but it actually does have a few options on it that, you know, you would take for granted to be standard equipment, but it's not. So the first thing here, one thing you're noticing probably is this big canister here. This is a big sheet metal made canister. It's mounted to the fender, and you look over here and it has a hose leading off of it. Well, this big hose here, look how large that hose is. Leads back over to the engine in a hard line. This is a vacuum reservoir. And then the other side of it has another hose leading back to this object back here, and that is the power brake assembly on this car. This is a divorced power brake assembly. At least it is in the engine compartment and not under the car. There's probably no room under the car. But you come down here and you can see that there's the master cylinder is right there. So that was fairly common back then to do it that way instead of having it just mounted on the firewall. So there's a lot of extra assemblies involved in just power brakes on this. And then we look over here, we have this is part of the voltage regulator. It has American Bosch voltage regulator, and there's probably the part number. Wouldn't be surprised if this is not an aftermarket. If it is the original, I'm not sure, because this is in the era before that Chrysler Mopar made a lot of their own stuff electrically. So if you look here, there's a grommet here on the firewall there's a couple grommets, and I've observed that there's some wires going into it more than what there should be, which we're going to discuss in a minute. But see that big rubber line there going in? That's probably what's only thing supposed to be in it originally. that comes over here, that's an oil line for the oil gauge. This is your dipstick back here with a big red handle on it. Going into the back of the engine, there's a distributor, and there's the coil. There's the linkage back here. It looks like that's probably the engine temperature sensor or the oil pressure. I'm not sure which, but it looks like it's going into the intake. That's interesting. Never seen one do that before. Where am I? Right there. Okay, so right up here front and center on the engine, everybody's probably noticed this generator with the power steering. Never mind those noises. Those are the birds up there getting water off the roof. We had a big storm last night. So people have probably How about cutting that out? Thank you. Sorry. Anyway, so people probably already noticed this big generator up here with the power steering pump made onto the back of it. That's kind of how they did it back then. So this is appears to be click, 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 click. Looks like this is an the electric auto. This is an Autolite generator. This car is 12 volt, by the way. This is right after they went to 12 volts. So it runs the power steering pump off the back of it. So the big thing about this is that DeSoto really bragged about this, because this car has what they called, I think they called this concentric power steering, which was what their literature called it. But if we look down in here, way down in here, you see there's a big unit coming down on the steering column, but the power steering lines go directly into that. So what it is the significance of that is that this is not the type, this has integral power steering in the box. It does not have a ram made onto the steering linkage. That was done occasionally by some automakers, but this one doesn't have that. It's all made together, so they're very proud of that. It has a lot of belts in here. We've got one groove there that's empty for the air conditioner. Then there's 2 grooves to the water pump. Big giant pulley back here for the generator. We have a hose here up to the radiator. So this over here, this is where the battery box is, the support. And then once again, in good YouTube fashion, someone has put the black battery cable onto the positive and the red to the negative. I don't understand why a human being would do that. Why would you do that? Makes no damn sense. But they did. So over here on the firewall we have some relays, which I believe that's the starter relay. I believe that's a horn relay. I believe that's a ballast resistor. Wiring going back here, and then big hose on the bottom of the water outlet from the. Look at that assembly in there. Look how huge that all is. Hard for you to see, but it's got a big water manifold in there. We've got a hose up top coming down from the bypass thermostat housing, comes down. Well, I guess that's where the water pump is, right behind there. So water pumps are known to have problems. Big water outlet bolted on there, and then a hose going down. And got 2 horns up front. These are called Spartan horns. And then the radiators, I already mentioned. And there's the air conditioning condenser that was added on at some point. This car did not originally have air conditioning. Could have had air conditioning, but this one didn't. Not originally. And then here's your radiator. Let's just leave this thing on, I guess. So So saw the radiator number somewhere on this that indicated this was the original radiator. We'll double check that, but I'm pretty certain I saw it, and it was. So, okay, we'll come around over here. Just look at the back of this. Here's the other side of the engine. Got your ignition coil there. Distributor, as we saw. That carburetor, I'm not sure if that's the original carburetor or not. It's supposed to have a dash pot on the other side of it, which I did not see it having. But this tube coming up, that's your hot air choke. They used a hot air choke as opposed to the later ones that had a divorced, just heated on the intake. And that's the bolted on advance line going to the distributor. So all those later on were rubber for the most part. Everything on one of these cars is bolted on. This car does have a heater. I didn't see it coated on the body tag, but it does actually have one. There's the heater box and lines going into it. I noticed, unfortunately though, that some of these lines are looped around, which that one's not looped around. That one on the bottom is supposed to be like that because of the way the heater valve is designed. But this one coming over here, you see, well, I can't, yeah, that one there just loops around to right there and comes up, and then that one comes out of the engine and then loops back to the engine over there. So I was asked something about that, I think, and that's, I hope, may have to repair the heater core in it, not replace it. I'm sure there's none available anymore, but I think this car has two heater fans on it for some reason. It's got one out here, one for the defroster and one for the heater. Pretty sure that's the way that is. I was asked about this big old air conditioning compressor and whether it had a clutch on it. It does have a clutch. The clutch is mounted inboard, but there's the wires to it, where they taped it to one of the heater, and then it runs off somewhere over there. And then the other side is just a ground right there. But this is a Lehigh V93 air conditioning compressor. This is a V4. It's a 4-cylinder. Under that cylinder head are 2 pistons on each side. There's no telling how much horsepower this thing requires to run it, but it's free. I have turned it. It's not locked up. I'm sure it's got an oil reservoir in it. We come back here. If I can get in there to see that. So far, let's see here. Have a look at there's the tag on it. Lehigh. So then looking in here, I saw something right away that made me realize that this carburetor and this fuel line arrangement are not correct. The carburetor probably is. That's just a BBD carburetor. It's an early one. But somebody has put in this fuel filter, fuel bowl. But you notice how that it's cocked to one side because it won't fit? That's because it doesn't fit. It's not supposed to be there. This car is supposed to have just a metal fuel line going up to the carburetor, but someone has bent this one around or done something with it. And that's not supposed to be there because the fuel pump on this is way down here. And if we get in here, as you peek down in there, there's a fuel bowl on the bottom of it. And then that's the fuel filter. This is a rubber swivel fuel, got a swivel connector on one end of it that comes from the hard line on the car that bolts to the fuel pump. That fuel pump's rebuildable. It has a cartridge style oil filter rather, which is down in there. So you have to get to that from under the, well, I don't know, but the easiest probably to get to it from under the car. And The exhaust manifolds are tucked way under this thing. So it's not going to be easy to work on whatsoever. But it'll be interesting. I'll say that for it. That big bracket back there for the spring. See how they overbuilt everything? That's just that bracket that's pointing upward that has a spring. That's all that's in it. Just a spring. Right. So I'm pretty sure this car has an auto light starter on it as well. So here's something that was really fascinating to me. And I'm going to have some help from y'all to figure out what this is. This box up here. This box up here was mounted to the core support, and it's not original. I'll show you the sticker off of it in a second, but it has wires coming out of it on the side here, and it has that one, that big one right there. It wraps around there, goes around the whole thing, comes back out, goes over the core support, and goes down to the it disappears down into under the pan of the car. And then there's another wire that comes out of all things, the front turn signal up here, parking lot, and comes back in here and takes off somewhere else across the car here. Comes in over here and comes around and ties into this junction here. So one thing to notice too is this car has some cloth wiring on it under the hood, and it is in a very deteriorated condition, I noticed. So we're going to have to work on that. There's several short circuits just waiting to happen. But I don't know what that box is there. Let me show you this deal that it goes to under the front bumper. I've never seen anything like it, but this is what it goes to. There's a wire coming in from a aforementioned box, and it has that device here, which is open. It's just wired to it, and it looks like I don't know what it looks like. Quite frankly, I don't know what it is. So that's where I need you guys' help to see if you can determine what this is, this unit over here. I'm not going to take it off, but I'm curious to know why it's tied into the lights like that, apparently. We have a decal under here that says something transmitter, 3-3 transmitter, and then I think the last part it says MTS. Sorry, it's so hard to look at there, but and the serial number, it says 6-volt, 12-volt power in. So I come over here. There was a painted over label on it, which I managed to get a lot of the paint off of. Let's get over here where you can see it better. But a lot of it's still unreadable. It says something about do not plug into a system. Transmission's 12-volt system unless. And it's got a diagram here. It's got black switch, ignition switch, system. Got some more stuff up here. It looks like diagrams. So anyway, guys, I don't know what that is. It's some sort of a radio transmitter, I think. It was hooked into this thing on this, the other end of it goes up to this switch assembly in here. Which operates, when I pull out on that knob, it operates the headlights, and then it's got a momentary switch there that's also connected to it. So if you know, let us know. But anyway, hope you liked the tour there of under the hood of this old DeSoto. Thanks. Have a good one.